Most people want to succeed, but they forget what success demands. You don't attract success by wishing, you attract it by becoming the kind of person success is drawn to, and that becoming requires sacrifice. It's a harsh truth, I know, but here's the secret. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, growth over gossip, you are shaping a future most will never taste. Success isn't something you pursue blindly, it's something you earn daily. Not with intensity once in a while, but with discipline over and over again. See, here's what most people get wrong. They want the prize without the price. They want the reward without the routine. But life doesn't work that way. Life is always asking, what are you willing to give up in exchange for who you want to become? And every day, your choices answer that question loud and clear. You want wealth? Then you may have to sacrifice leisure. You want discipline? Then you may have to give up excuses. You want purpose? Then you must say no to anything that steals your focus. The clearer your vision, the more ruthless you must be with your time. It's easy to wish. It's harder to work. It's easy to dream. It's harder to build. But the people who live extraordinary lives are not the ones with the most talent. They're the ones with the most commitment. The ones who understood early on that sacrifice is the gatekeeper to success. Sacrifice doesn't mean suffering. It means investing. You're trading temporary comfort for permanent progress. You're choosing long-term gain over short-term gratification. And let me tell you, when you start to enjoy that process, when you begin to love the sweat, the silence, the early mornings, the lonely hours, that's when the game changes. Discipline is not a punishment, it's a sign that you respect your future. It's a declaration that you're done playing small. And once you build a life on discipline, sacrifice no longer feels like loss. It starts to feel like alignment. People will call you obsessed. They'll say you're working too hard, being too strict, pushing too far. But they don't see what you see. They don't feel the fire inside you. And that's okay. They're not building your dream, you are. And builders know this truth. Nothing great is built without giving something up. So here's the challenge. Look at your daily habits. Look at what you tolerate. Look at where you compromise. And ask yourself, is this helping me become who I said I wanted to be? If the answer is no, cut it. Replace it. Trade it. You only get one life. Don't waste it chasing comfort. Because at the end of the day, that success doesn't come to the most talented. It comes to the most disciplined. And discipline is a decision you make every single day. So make it today. Decide. Choose your sacrifice and go get what's already waiting for you. On the other side of discipline, the temptation to wish is easy. It costs nothing to dream. You don't need effort. You don't need a plan, and you certainly don't need discipline to sit in a chair and hope that life will one day hand you a miracle. But wishing by itself never built anything, and never fed a family, never built a business, never wrote a book or shaped a legacy. Wishing is the illusion of effort. It gives you the feeling that you're moving when in fact you're standing still. Discipline is not punishment, it's preparation. When I was young, I wanted things to change for me. I used to say, I wish things were different. Then I learned the magic phrase that changed my life. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. That's when I stopped wishing and started working. I got serious. I got up earlier, I stayed up later, I invested in my mind, and I committed to my craft. And little by little, the world began to respond. Not because it owed me anything, but because I finally became someone worth responding to. Comfort is seductive. It tells you, take it easy. You've got time. Don't push too hard. But the truth is, comfort is the enemy of progress. It'll keep you stuck in the same place year after year, wondering why nothing has changed. See, life doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most consistent. The person who shows up, the one who sacrifices temporary ease for long-term gain, the one who chooses effort over excuses. You've got to get to a place where your goals matter more than your moods, where your mission overrides your appetite for comfort. Success doesn't arrive with a knock at the door. It's attracted by who you become. And who you become is shaped by what you're willing to give up. You want to get fit? Give up the junk. You want to build wealth? Give up mindless spending. Want to grow spiritually? Give up the distractions. Every gain has a cost, and every sacrifice is a seed. One of the most dangerous habits I've ever seen a person develop is the habit of excuses. Excuses are seductive. They're soft, they're polite, and they often sound reasonable. That's the problem. They let you off the hook while convincing you that you're still being honest. I was tired. I didn't have the right opportunity. My parents never taught me about money. It's not my fault. On and on they go. But let me tell you something from experience. Every time you make an excuse, you surrender a piece of your power. And eventually, if you're not careful, you'll give all of it away. You see, excuses are not just stories we tell others. They're lies we whisper to ourselves so we can avoid responsibility. And once you've practiced making them long enough, they become second nature. Now you've built a habit, not of action, but of rationalization. And success doesn't live there. Success has no tolerance for stories. It only responds to results. I remember when I was broke, 26 years old, flat on my back financially, and I had a list of reasons why. My company didn't pay me enough. I didn't get a proper education. I came from a small town. The economy was bad. But none of that put food on my table. None of that paid my bills. And then I met someone who asked me a question that shifted everything. Are you going to keep pointing fingers, or are you ready to take control of your life? That day I made a decision. No more excuses. From that moment forward, if something was wrong, it was on me. If I wanted something more, it was on me. If I didn't like my circumstances, it was on me to change them. Now, choosing responsibility over rationalization doesn't mean blame. It doesn't mean you're guilty of everything that's ever happened to you. What it means is that you recognize your ability to respond. Responsibility. That's where your power lives. Because if your situation is someone else's fault, you're stuck. But if it's in your hands, if the change depends on you, then you have a future. That's the difference between victims and victors. Victims wait for the world to change. Victors change themselves and shape the world around them. It's easy to say, I would have succeeded if it wasn't for. But you've got to ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to become? Someone who finds a way, or someone who finds a way out? Excuses feel good for a moment, but they steal your momentum, they rob your potential, and worst of all, to keep you comfortable with mediocrity. So the next time you're tempted to explain why you didn't do it, pause. Don't look for reasons, look for results. Train yourself to say, it's my responsibility. That one shift, that one decision to stop excusing and start owning will change the trajectory of your life. Because success doesn't belong to the clever, it belongs to the committed. And commitment starts with ownership. Let me tell you, there comes a point on your journey to success where you realize the biggest threat to your progress isn't failure, it's distraction. The noise of the world, the pressure to say yes when your goals are quietly begging you to say no. And I'm not just talking about social media or your phone buzzing every few minutes. I'm talking about the need to please, the desire to fit in, The fear of being misunderstood. That's the kind of noise that drowns out the signal of your purpose. When I was starting out, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was how to say no. Not because I didn't want to be liked, but because I knew where I was going. And you can't reach your destination if you keep stopping at every detour labeled approval. If you're serious about leveling up, you have to get comfortable disappointing a few people so you don't disappoint yourself. It's the real sacrifice. Not always being available, not always being popular, not always being agreeable, but always being committed. I remember a time when I was invited out almost every weekend. Dinners, parties, casual hangouts. People would say, "Come on, just this once." But here's what I knew. Every just this once is a trade. You're either trading time for growth or for entertainment. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years entertaining yourself into stagnation. So I began to say no, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. I had goals, and they required focus. And focus requires elimination. You see, saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. You're not turning away from people, you're turning toward your purpose. And yes, some folks won't get it. They'll say you've changed. They'll call you obsessed. Let them. Because when you finally arrive at that level you've been working for, when your results start speaking louder than their opinions, you won't need to explain anything. Success has a way of silencing critics. The same people who questioned your sacrifice will one day admire your discipline. I've seen too many people with talent go nowhere because they couldn't separate their need for approval from their need for progress. So let me tell you plain, you can't please the world and still fulfill your purpose. You've got to choose. And that choice shows up in the daily decisions, the invites you decline, the conversations you avoid, the hours you guard. It may feel lonely for a season, but success is often built in solitude and revealed in public. If you want to stand out later, you have to be willing to stand alone now. Because fitting in is easy, but greatness is earned in the quiet hours of saying no. When the world is cheering for yes, and when the dust settles, when the scoreboard shows what you built while others were distracted, you'll be grateful you listened to your future instead of the noise. Discipline is the foundation of success, but let's be honest, it's not always easy. You won't always feel like showing up. In fact, some days you won't want to do anything at all. The challenge isn't in the days when you're motivated, it's in those days when you're not. And trust me, those days will come. They always do. And even when your feelings are screaming at you to do something else. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is waiting for the right mood. They tell themselves, "I'll work out when I feel motivated." Or, "I'll start that project when I feel inspired." But let me tell you, motivation is a fleeting thing. It comes and goes, and if you rely on it, you'll end up disappointed. You need something stronger than motivation, and that's discipline. Discipline is doing what you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. It's making the phone call, sending the email, getting up early, and doing the work. Even when every bone in your body is telling you to skip it. The great ones understand this. They don't wait for the perfect moment, the perfect energy, or the perfect mood. They do it anyway. Think about the times in your life when you were successful. I'll bet you that those successes didn't come from moments of inspiration or bursts of excitement. They came from the mundane, from the countless hours of consistent effort. From the times you pushed through and kept going when it would have been easier to stop. I remember back in the early days of building my business, I would get up at 5 a.m. every day, no exception. It didn't matter if I was tired, if I felt like sleeping in, or if I had a rough night. I knew that success didn't come from comfort. It came from commitment. And commitment, my friend, requires discipline. You see, discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Every time you do what you need to do, even when you don't feel like it, you're strengthening that muscle. And the more you strengthen it, the easier it becomes to do the hard things. Over time, it doesn't feel like a battle. It just becomes who you are. I've been in the room with some of the most successful people, and let me tell you, they all have one thing in common. They're willing to do the work, even when it's uncomfortable. They understand that real success doesn't come from the occasional burst of effort. It comes from a relentless, unwavering commitment to doing what needs to be done. So here's the lesson. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Do it anyway. The days when you don't feel like it are the days that matter the most. That's when your discipline is tested, and that's when you'll find out who you really are. When you push through the discomfort, when you do it anyway, you're shaping your future. You're building the habits and character that lead to success. And that's a power no one can take away from you. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about doing the work every single day, even when you don't feel like it. That's what separates the dreamers from the doers. And that's the key to building the kind of success that lasts. Sacrifice is a word that most people shy away from. It sounds like something negative, something you have to give up, something that feels like a loss. But here's the truth. Sacrifice isn't loss, it's leverage. It's the ability to forego a small pleasure in the present to create a far greater reward in the future. And this is the difference between those who live paycheck to paycheck and those who build true wealth. Think about it. The world offers all kinds of distractions. Instant gratification is at every corner, whether it's a new gadget, a night out, or that extra hour of sleep. These things are easy to get caught up in, and they feel good in the moment. But here's the harsh reality. If you choose the quick thrill over the long-term gain, you'll always be playing catch-up. When I started my journey, I knew I had to make choices. I had to choose between the immediate comforts and the future I wanted. I could have gone out with friends every weekend, spent money on things I didn't need, or indulged in temporary pleasures. But I made a choice. I chose to delay my pleasures for my purpose. I knew that sacrificing a few things today would put me in a much stronger position down the road. You have to understand that success doesn't come from indulging in the now. It comes from sacrificing the now for the sake of a brighter, more secure future. It's about building the foundation today that will allow you to live the life you want tomorrow. That's why the most successful people are willing to make sacrifices that others are not. They're not missing out, they're investing. Now, this doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. It doesn't mean you should be miserable or deny yourself everything, but it means you need to prioritize. You need to make strategic decisions. Ask yourself, is this temporary pleasure worth the price I'll pay in the long run? More often than not, the answer is no. It's not worth it. A person who skips the fast food and chooses to cook a healthy meal is making a sacrifice for their health. The person who wakes up an hour earlier to work on their dreams is sacrificing sleep for their success. The person who works on their business instead of watching TV is sacrificing entertainment for progress. And it's these small sacrifices that add up to something monumental over time. The truth is, when you delay pleasure for purpose, you're giving yourself the time, energy, and resources to build something that will serve you far longer than the fleeting pleasure ever could. But this is where most people falter. They see sacrifice as a burden instead of an opportunity. They don't realize that every sacrifice is an investment. It's putting your time, energy, and effort into something that will pay off later. I remember in the early days of my career, I made the decision to focus on building my business instead of spending money on things that wouldn't matter in the long run. I sacrificed trips, material possessions and luxuries, to reinvest in myself and my growth. I didn't go for the easy pleasure. I went for the purpose that would eventually lead to financial freedom and personal fulfillment. And you can do the same. You don't have to keep living the same way you've been living. You don't have to keep making the same choices that are keeping you stuck. Instead, you can begin to see sacrifice for what it truly is, leverage. You're not giving up anything. You're setting yourself up for something far greater. And you can do the same. You don't have to keep living the same way you've been living. You don't have to keep making the same choices that are keeping you stuck. Instead, you can begin to see sacrifice for what it truly is, leverage. You're not giving up anything. You're setting yourself up for something far greater. So ask yourself, what is it that you need to sacrifice today to create the future you want? What small comfort or thrill can you put on hold in exchange for a bigger and better tomorrow? It's all about seeing the big picture. Sacrifice is never about what you're losing. It's always about what you're gaining. And once you make that shift in perspective, you'll realize that every time you delay pleasure for purpose, you're getting closer to the wealth and wisdom you desire. To become who you are meant to be, you must first let go of who you've been. This is a hard truth that many of us struggle with. We all have versions of ourselves that we've outgrown. Habits, mindsets, and even relationships that no longer serve us. Yet we hold on. We resist change. We cling to the familiar because it feels comfortable, even if it's holding us back. But here's the thing. Growth demands space. To become someone new, you must make room for that new version of yourself. I remember a time when I was stuck in old patterns of thinking. I had certain habits that didn't serve my goals. I had friends who weren't pushing me forward, but were instead pulling me down. I was surrounded by negativity, and it took me a long time to realize that I couldn't grow in that environment. I had to make a choice. Stay where I was and continue to struggle, or let go of the old and create space for something new. And that's exactly what I did. I let go of the things that no longer aligned with my vision. I stopped spending time with people who didn't share my goals and values. I let go of the limiting beliefs that held me back. I gave myself permission to grow. And that meant releasing the old, even if it was painful. It wasn't easy. It never is. Letting go of who you were can feel like a loss because you've grown attached to those old versions of yourself. But when you hold on to something that's no longer useful, you're actually keeping yourself trapped in the past. You can't move forward while looking back. You can't evolve while clinging to old ways of thinking and being. Growth is about shedding the old so that the new can come in. Letting go doesn't mean you forget your past. It doesn't mean you erase your experiences. On the contrary, it's about honoring those experiences and using them as stepping stones to move forward. But you can't carry every piece of your past with you into the future. If you want to level up, you have to let go of what no longer serves your growth. Think about it this way. When a seed grows into a tree, it doesn't hold on to the soil it came from, it reaches upward. Letting go of its old form to become something bigger, something greater. And that's what you must do. You must let go of the old versions of yourself. The fears, the doubts, the negative patterns, and the people who are holding you back. Let them go to create space for your growth. This is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself. Release what's no longer serving you and allow the new to take its place. Whether it's a bad habit, a toxic relationship, or an outdated mindset, it's time to make the decision to let it go. Growth can't happen unless you clear out the old to make way for the new. The moment I decided to let go of the things that were holding me back, my life started to change. I began attracting better opportunities, better people, and better results. It was as if the universe was waiting for me to make the first move. But I had to be willing to release the past and embrace the future. And now, I encourage you to do the same. Ask yourself, what old version of me do I need to let go of in order to move forward? What habits, mindsets, or relationships do I need to release in order to make room for my growth? Growth demands space. You can't level up if you're still holding on to the old you. So let go. Free yourself from the past and create the space you need to grow into the person you were always meant to be. Because when you let go, you give yourself permission to level up. The most powerful investment you can make is not in stocks, real estate, or cryptocurrency. It's in yourself. It's a sacrifice that pays incredible dividends, not just once, but for the rest of your life. The books you read, the mentors you seek, and the questions you ask are all investments in your future. They may require time, energy, and effort, but they are the sacrifices that will yield the richest returns. I've always said, the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. And I truly believe that. Provinciolo viva decumurte, manature pe, viva fieraro, mentos. Growth, in its most fundamental sense, is a continuous process. You can't just coast through life and expect things to fall into place. You have to put in the work every single day. And one of the most important ways to do that is through self-education. Think about it. The knowledge you acquire today will shape the opportunities you see tomorrow. The ideas you expose yourself to, the strategies you learn, and the wisdom you gain. All of that compounds over time. Every book you read, every course you take, every conversation you have with a mentor or someone more experienced than you is a building block for your future success. Self-education isn't just about accumulating information. It's about transforming that information into wisdom, into actionable knowledge that you can use to make better decisions, solve problems, and overcome obstacles. It's about developing a mindset that is always curious, always eager to learn, and always looking for ways to improve. Because in the end, what you learn today will determine how you perform tomorrow. I remember a time in my life when I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know how to build the kind of wealth or success I wanted, but I knew one thing for sure. I had to learn. I didn't just rely on my own experiences. I sought out the experiences of others. I read books, attended seminars, listened to people who had already walked the path I wanted to walk. And in those moments, I learned that success isn't just about doing. It's about understanding. The great part about self-education is that you don't need permission to learn. The world is full of resources waiting for you to tap into them. Books are everywhere, mentors are within reach, and the internet is a treasure trove of knowledge. You have all the tools you need to grow and succeed. But here's the thing. It's up to you to make the commitment. It's up to you to decide that your future is worth the investment. And I can tell you from experience, every minute you spend investing in yourself will return to you 100-fold. The knowledge you gain from books and mentors will help you avoid costly mistakes, find better solutions, and accelerate your growth in ways you can't even imagine yet. But, more importantly, the act of learning teaches you discipline. It teaches you to be humble, to understand that you don't have all the answers, and that you must continually seek improvement. But there's a catch. The world doesn't reward you for just wishing to learn or hoping to learn. It rewards you for taking action. You can read all the books in the world, but if you don't apply that knowledge, it's just information sitting in your mind, doing nothing. Self-education only works when you take what you've learned and put it into practice. That's where the real magic happens. Investing in yourself is a sacrifice, there's no doubt about it. It takes time away from entertainment, from distractions, from things that seem urgent in the moment. But when you think about what you stand to gain, those small sacrifices become insignificant in comparison to the rewards you'll reap. I've seen countless people go from broke to thriving, from uncertain to confident, and from stuck to successful, all because they made the decision to invest in themselves. And I promise you the same can happen for you, but it starts with one simple choice: to commit to learning and growing every single day. So ask yourself, what's the best way I can invest in myself today? What book can I read? What mentor can I seek out? What question can I ask that will move me closer to my goals? The best sacrifice you can make is the sacrifice of time, energy, and focus toward your self-education. And that sacrifice will pay off in ways that will last a lifetime. You don't need everyone's approval to succeed. In fact, waiting for permission to take action, to level up, is one of the biggest traps most people fall into. It's a trap that keeps them stuck in a cycle of inaction and uncertainty. You don't need to seek permission from others to create the life you want. You need to trust your vision and move toward it with confidence. The world is full of voices telling you what you should do, how you should do it, and when you should do it. But the truth is, no one knows your journey like you do. No one else can see the vision you hold for your life, and they're not going to understand the sacrifices you'll make along the way. So stop waiting for approval. Stop seeking validation from people who aren't even walking the same path as you. Living with purpose means trusting your inner authority. It means knowing deep down that you have the power to make decisions for yourself, to act without needing to check in with everyone else, and to build something meaningful on your own terms. You already have all the tools you need: your experience, your passion, and your drive. You just have to trust yourself enough to take action. I've seen so many people waste time seeking approval from friends, family, or colleagues, thinking that their success depends on someone else's permission. They hold back from making the tough choices, from taking the risks, because they're afraid of what others might think. But real success doesn't beg for approval. It doesn't ask for permission. It moves forward quietly but confidently, and let the results speak for themselves. When I started out, I didn't have anyone cheering me on. In fact, I had plenty of doubters and critics. People who thought I was crazy for pursuing my dreams. People who questioned my choices and my direction. But I didn't need their approval. I didn't need them to understand my vision. What I needed was to trust myself and my ability to build something that aligned with my values and purpose, and that's exactly what I did. Too many people are afraid of the criticism they might face, so they hold back. They hide their ambition behind excuses and doubts. But this fear of judgment keeps them from ever stepping into their full potential. The world doesn't need more people who live for approval. The world needs people who are willing to risk failure, but to step out of their comfort zones and to move forward with authority and purpose. When you stop seeking permission and start living with purpose, everything changes. You'll notice that the distractions start to fade. You won't be as concerned with what others think of your choices, because you'll be so focused on your own path. You'll move with clarity and confidence, knowing that every step you take is in alignment with your vision. Success is not about getting people's approval. It's about having the courage to build your own future, regardless of what others say. And yes, that requires sacrifice. It requires the sacrifice of comfort, the sacrifice of easy answers, and the sacrifice of approval. But the price is worth it. Because when you start moving with purpose, when you start trusting your own decisions, you'll see the results that no one can deny. So stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for others to give you the green light. You have everything you need to succeed right now. The only thing standing between you and your vision is the willingness to act, to step into your own authority, and to keep moving forward, no matter who else is on board. Real success isn't about begging for permission. It's about building something meaningful, something that will stand the test of time. And that starts with you. You are the authority in your life. You are the one who will shape your destiny. And it's time to step into that power with confidence.